Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first webinar hosting you all on communication strategies. We just wanted to thank you for taking the time out to commit to this presentation. We are recording it, but you won't be on the recording. It'll just be whoever is in presenter mode at the time. And I do have all of your lines muted currently, so if you need to talk back and forth with us, there's a little chat feature on the bottom. And we'll be able to see that a notification will pop up and we'll be able to reply to you that way. The first thing we're going to do is talk about the SIF July update that we sent out as a attachment to this email. And essentially, this is the only guidance that CNCS wants us to use moving forward. So I'm going to share my screen here and show you two of the main things that we're going to talk about. One of them is the funding years. So when speaking about grants or making sub-grantee announcements, intermediaries and other SIF partners should ensure they clearly state which year the funding was received. So for us, that would be 2015, that we received the funding, and you all received, obviously, the pass-through or sub-grants in 2016. So the compensation is supported through funding awarded in 2015, 2016 by the Social Innovation Fund. Essentially, they want to be very clear that no more funding is going to be going out the door for SIF. And then when speaking about SIF itself, the Social Innovation Fund was a program of the Corporation for National and Community Service that received funding from 2010 to 2016, using public and private resources to fund and grow community-based nonprofits with evidence of results. SIF intermediaries received funding to award subgrants that focus on overcoming challenges in economic opportunity, healthy futures, and youth development. Of course, our category was economic opportunity. Although CNCS made its last SIF intermediary awards in fiscal year 2016, SIF intermediaries will continue to administer their subgrant programs until their federal funding is exhausted. So essentially, that is what they would like us to say when it comes to SIF. So we have a lot of extra room when it comes to talking about our own individual programs, but when we talk about them, they have that very clear language. We also ask that you all use the Social Innovation Fund logo as well as the Youth Prize logo when you are doing press releases or any other kinds of public communications about the program. And we do have a Q&A section kind of later. I forgot to go over the agenda, so we're going to welcome you, talk about the July update. Our next conversation will be about the branding for Opportunity Reboot and kind of our process moving forward leading up to our February convening. And then we're going to have our Youth Prize communications team talk about our framework here at Youth Prize. So that's Lizzie and Chanel. And then we'll have Q&A at the very end. We'll kind of unmute everybody's microphones. And then if you have questions, we can talk through it that way. So next up is our process for branding Opportunity Reboot. So essentially, we've been having quite a few conversations about the sustainability of our programs, knowing that we're not going to get additional funding through CNCS or through the Social Innovation Fund. And in talking and planning for this webinar, we kind of realized that if we're going to brand Opportunity Reboot, we want to do it justice, and we want to take some time to do that and not just, you know, kind of throw some things out there about what we want to say about the program and how we approach potential funders as a unit, how we potentially lobby or have policy shift or change as a cohort, just thinking about the long-term sustainability of the program and how we can support that. We are going to take the next 2 months, so taking you know, the end of December, utilizing the full month of January, and then the 20 days up until the convening to really figure out what that sustainability plan is, how it relates to communication strategies, and what we want to say about Opportunity Reboot and how we want to approach others in attempts to really make this, all of our programs sustainable. If there's a potential for funding for all of us to apply together, still seeking out, you know, those opportunities, obviously, but we really wanted to take the time to see what that branding conversation could pan out to be. So we started at the convening in October talking about our collective efforts and how we can move forward. I know you guys are looking to Youth Prize to really provide that guidance and leadership. And in preparing for this particular webinar, we were just like, well, we don't have a specific strategy laid out quite yet, but just knowing that that's something we want to work on and we're committed to doing. And Marcus will be spearheading that effort with guidance from our communications team, of course, because they're awesome.
So this is like kind of a part of the process. So we are not going to have all the answers today, but I think this is the beginning of really understanding what would it take for us to sustain this program. So in the February convening, hopefully we'll have something for you to react to give us feedback. And actually your questions today will be helpful too, to guide us as to what direction we should go. Hopefully that makes sense.
All right, so next up is our awesome communications team. They look like they're getting their strategy together. They actually are going to be showing a couple of videos as well. So I'm going to unmute you, Lizzie.
Hey
and
guys.
Also going to make you our spotlight video.
Great. Hey, can everybody hear us?
Yep.
Okay, great.
It's not.
So Chanel and I haven't had a chance to meet each of you. So I'm Lizzie Schramko. I'm the communications director here at Youth Prize. I see some familiar faces. Graham, I saw you at our summit, so that was cool. And I'm Chanel, like you said. Yeah. The communications coordinator at Youth Prize. Yeah, so since we haven't met you all, we thought maybe you could introduce yourselves to us. If you say your name and maybe the last song that you listened to that's giving you life right now. I feel like music is always good. Melissa and Rose, you can pick us off if you want.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute you guys one at a time just because I don't know if you have background noise going on or if, you know, somebody might try to walk into the room if you're shuffling papers and it'll be on the recording. So I'm going to unmute Emily Peterson. So if you want to introduce yourself and who's in the room.
Emily Peterson with the Compass program, and Sandy Lagrono behind me, and hiding off screen is Jenny Bushman. The last song I listened to was I forgot the name already, from Who Am I from Les Mis, because the students are writing a Who Am I poem, and so I made them listen to that as inspiration.
Cool.
Dark, but it was good.
I think mine's the exact opposite. On the way to work, I was listening to KTIS, so it's Christian music, and a lot of Christmas music. Nothing specific.
I would echo that. Jenny Bushman, I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning in Sauk Rapids Rice, and listening to Christian music on the way to work and Christmas music this time of year. So,
Awesome. Thank you guys. Brenda Delaney, you guys are up next.
Hi, I'm Brenda, and what else did you need to know about us? Just
Your title and role.
Sure. So I'm a program manager at the Wilder Foundation, working with Prior Crossing. And the last song I listened to, I love the band The National. It's kind of an indie band that is one of my favorites, so it's usually on repeat.
Cool.
Hi, and I'm Stacy Zimmer. I'm the employment counselor at Prior Crossing, and I was just trying to think of the last song, but it was last night. My daughters are both in a play for their school, and they're having auditions today, so they were practicing their songs for that. So that's in my head a little bit.
Awesome. Let's go with Gwen and Zach.
I'm Gwen, and I am the graphic designer for Northfield Healthy Community Initiative, and I do web design and other marketing type stuff. And honestly, it's Christmas music is what I've had on at the house while I'm sewing. So, good evening here.
I'm Zach Pruitt. I'm the director of HCI in the Northfield area. I had to figure out, it was the Burden Down song by Jennifer Hudson, the new Jennifer Hudson song. So.
Cool. She's fabulous. Next up is Elaine. My unmute isn't working. Did you?
Yeah, Elaine, I think you muted yourself.
Okay, I'm Elaine Salinas. I'm president of Magazine Communications. And the last song I listened to was Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, because we have no privacy in our offices. And our finance director had that on the radio.
That's great. Graham?
Hi, I'm Graham Hartley. I'm the director of programs here at Magazine. And the last song that I listened to, and it is what it is. It was The Joker by the Steve Miller Band.
That's what it is.
And last but certainly not least, Jason Beckman.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. So my name is Jason Beckman. I'm the program director here at SOAR. And the last song I listened to, actually I listened to some punk rock on the way into work this morning because I've been out ill for a few days. I needed to kind of get my energy up, so I listened to a band called Boris the Sprinkler, and they're a Wisconsin band.
Very cool.
I think we have Jill joining us now.
Oh,
So Jill, we're just introducing ourselves and the last song you listened to. So if you and Alan want to go ahead and let us know that.
Okay, hi. It's just me right now.
Okay.
Sorry it took me so long to figure it out. I was having computer issues. My last song I listened to was Sturgill Simpson's, my daughter calls it the bird song. It has birds in the beginning. Call to Arms this morning.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you all so much for doing that. It's always just nice to get to know the folks that we're working at the Youth Prize, because there are so many different kinds of people. And SIF is an exciting program because it's statewide. And so it's really cool to get to know folks. Chanel, what's the last song you listened to?
I was just listening to music. Maroon 5.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's cool. And then for me, I was really inspired. Yesterday, we were having a staff conversation about naming our conference rooms. And one of the themes was naming them after Prince songs.
Oh.
And so I've been listening to Prince all morning. And then Melissa and Rose, you guys can't get off the hook. What have you been listening to?
I've been listening to KTIS for sure. Christmas music all day, every day.
I have to say, I listened to something on NPR with Fresh Air, and I was fascinated by that band. It's Shanty Pen. It was music from South Carolina.
Oh, cool.
It was really cool, jazz influence, and I thought I need to look them up because now I don't remember the name of the group. So if I find it, I'll let you know.
All right, so we're gonna start the presentation and share our screen with you guys so you can see our presentation. I just wanted to, start off by saying that we're not trying to do capacity building like skill sharing. We're more sharing our philosophy behind communications and sort of our approach to it at Youth Prize. Just so everybody's expectations are there. And we'll probably take about 20 minutes, and then we can open it up to questions, 20 minutes to a half hour. Hopefully we won't run super long. But so this presentation was designed by our brand manager, Adib Masagi, who's not here, just Chanel and I are gonna be here. But so you've met both of us. So we have three folks who are on the communications team, myself, Chanel, and Adib. And I think that one of the things for us is that at Youth Prize, communications is considered programmatic. So we've been really influenced by the Allied Media Conference and Allied Media Projects out in Detroit. And they have, and I'm sure that Graham, you're super familiar with this, and McGizzy is as well, but they use the media justice framework. So we think that how you tell stories matters. The process is just as important as the product. And so our goal is to center folks who are most impacted in our storytelling. So it's not just about the outcome. It's not just about a pretty website or, a great, brand identity, but it's about who's involved in making decisions about how we're representing our work. Youth Prize is connected to a really diverse community of Minnesotans and Minnesota youth. And so it's our goal really to involve as many different stakeholders in the process as possible. So that includes grantees, that includes our philanthropic partners, that includes young people from all of our networks. And Chanel's an example of a young person that we have on staff. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So that's a little bit about like what our philosophy is and like who's involved a bit. Another thing that, you know, we've been trying to grow continually is our digital presence. So really thinking about where people already are. Some examples of shifts that we've had just in terms of like general communications tactics. We've moved away from press releases, for example, just because we feel like those aren't as effective for us as other ways of telling story, whether it's a blog or a video or a social media post. You know, sometimes that can be more effective. We've also tried to move away from print communications for a few different reasons. One of them is that we're trying to increase and grow our youth audience. So that's young people across the country. We're trying to improve that, and we're working with Google AdWords. We have a Google AdWord grant. We're working with a company on that, but basically if you're a nonprofit, you're eligible to have a Google Plus account, and then you can have a Google AdWord grant, and we can talk to you a little bit about that. I'm not sure if folks are utilizing that at the moment, but it's just a way to drive traffic to your website that can be really helpful. 3 examples of how we're trying to grow out our digital platform are through Youth Prize Speaks. So Youth Prize Speaks is an interactive kind of digital storytelling piece. And so we have multiple stories that we've produced in partnership with youth artists. And actually McGizzy was featured in one of them. It's not letting me. Oh yeah. But the one I'm gonna show you right now. Oh, cool. Sorry, we're getting messages. The one I'm going to show you right now is just an example of a video project that we produced in partnership with Nancy Musanguzi, who's a photographer and filmmaker in Minneapolis. And she spotlighted our youth-led research project at Juxtaposition Arts. So we fund youth-led research projects at different organizations through our YPAR grants. And this is just an example of one of them. Sorry, I'm having some trouble with the share screen thing. And we'll play this video, it's just 2 minutes.
I guess like the root of like that's where it's like trying to come from a new way of like city planning, maybe anything from that to like community gardens, like just ways that people who are like in the community like are taking a part in things. Basically up to whatever definitely like talking to people and like getting, you know, a community consensus on what they prioritize or what we prioritize and then like making that come into action. So like in the past, it's been that people want to like fill these vacant spaces up along West Broadway. For this project, a lot of capital work has been client-based and external work. And this is an opportunity for the young people that we work with to decide the direction of the project. We're forced to think of other ways that capital exists in our neighborhoods and in the world. So like the idea that there's a form of capital other than just like money and dollar bills, like there's social capital, there's like environmental capital, there's cultural capital. And so yeah, we just kind of focused on that and then wanted to research like the presence of Black businesses, what were their roles, and like how we can make them larger in ways that we can just build wealth over on Broadway. I feel like this is powerful. Like we get a lot of powerful knowledge as youth, and like I would rather we as youth did it than like a bunch of like white random like corporations or something come together with this information. Because now we're armed with that knowledge and like the people like share it to like our peers in our community.
So this is an example of a video that we produced in collaboration with Nancy that was supplemental to a youth-led research project. So the full report is down here that was produced by Juxtaposition, and they also made a zine. But the video is just an attempt to bring to life the work and the research that they've done. So that's one example of how we've done. We've tried to make more interactive and immersive experiences online. So that you would find on our website and on our blog. We also have our update, which is just an e-news kind of bi-monthly thing that we send out that keeps people updated, not only on website stuff like blogs and grant opportunities, but also social media posts and things that we're reading and we think are interesting and that showcase youth leadership. And then this is just kind of generally, the Youth Prize blog is generally where you'd find any like written updates or things that are going on. And so it's just an attempt to have our website be a living, breathing thing that's constantly changing and iterating and updating to reflect the work that we're doing and the work of our partners. And then in addition to these three things, we have a new initiative that we're launching in 2018 that Chanel can talk a little bit about.
So I'll be transitioning from communications coordinator to podcast producer, which is an interesting new thing that we're getting into at Youth Prize, but it's basically we're exploring this new medium of podcast production. And we're inviting a young person to come in and pitch their podcast idea to us, and we're gonna produce 6 podcast episodes over the course of 6 months with these young people. But this is the webpage that is currently on our website. The call is open now until, was it January 14th? Mm-hmm. So if you have any young people who might be interested in pitching a podcast to us, this is an opportunity for them. Also, if you want to share it with your networks, this is just a plug. But this is currently on our website. You designed all of the branding for this. I'm going to play the podcast pitch that we recorded for podcast proposals.
And if you guys, if this ends up being difficult to hear, just like go like that, thumbs down. Okay.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I am Chanel McCoy, podcast producer of Youth Prize Speaks. Now, you might have a couple of questions like, what is Youth Prize? What is Youth Prize Speaks? Why are you talking to me? What do you want from me? Well, I want you to join the Youth Prize team with your big podcast idea as our podcaster in residence. We want to support you in beginning your career as the next podcast extraordinaire through a program we like to call Youth Prize Speaks. This means we will support you to create 6 30-minute podcast episodes that are related to the core values of Youth Prize. These values include racial equity, youth engagement, economic opportunity, health and safety, and learning and leadership. All that good stuff that helps Minnesota youth thrive. As a podcaster in residence, you will receive the following support: a $5,000 stipend, which I think is pretty nice, time with the Youth Prize brand manager to develop a branding concept and logo for your podcast, monthly meetings with the podcast mentor, and promotional support from Youth Prize. You also get to work with me, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's really good. Guidelines: you must be under the age of 25. Yes, we are looking for young people under the age of 25. You must live in Minnesota. You must have big and bold ideas for your podcast, and we're here to support you with that, so the bigger the better. Through Youth Prize Speaks, we will work together to give voice to the issues that matter most to you. As the podcaster in residence, you will have the platform to uplift communities and change the world one podcast at a time. Kind of corny, right? But really important. At Youth Prize, we believe that those most impacted by an issue hold the solution. So are you ready to be the solution? Pitch your podcast to Youth Prize starting December 1st. Applications will require a written podcast overview and a 5 to 8 minute audio introduction that you can really record on your phone if you wanted to. The podcast in residence will be announced on January 22nd. Stay tuned for more updates on Youth Prize Speaks and the podcast in residence coming soon. Also, if you want to learn more about Youth Prize, visit youthprize.org, and don't forget to follow us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Youth Prize. Talk soon.
Okay, cool. That's it. So we just opened up this call for pitches at our summit, which was on December 1st, and that focused on sort of digital storytelling, really centering it around young people who are already leading in those spaces. The podcast is an example of a way that we're trying to meet young people where they're at. So we're not trying to just print up research reports, although we have those too. We're trying to go to the spaces that young people are already at to tell our story and to work with them. The podcast, the video that you saw, those are all examples of ways that we support folks outside of Youth Prize to tell story on our platforms. So we provide financial support for all of our youth storytellers, and then the podcaster in residence, which can be one young person or a group of young people. And we encourage you to share the opportunity with your networks of young people as well. So those are just some examples of how we're trying to move into these digital spaces and learn really from young people who are already leading. And I think that one of the things that we think about a lot, within the communications department at Youth Prize, but also generally speaking, is that our goal really is to bring more resources to young people in Minnesota. Our goal is to shift the narrative about young people in Minnesota, not just statewide, but on a national level. And so we're connected with national partners like Every Hour It Counts and after school providers and things like that. And the goal is to really share the stories of young people by young people, kind of directed by their strategy. So in addition to, hiring young people to tell story, we also have young people involved in the strategy of communication. So I don't know, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, at Youth Prize, we define youth as 16 to 25, so I'm considered a youth until I'm 26. But essentially we, I don't know, my role, I started when I was 18 out of high school working with Youth Prize. I was an art coordinator innovator at the time, and my role has transformed since I've gotten here. But I've been able to get my degree through Youth Prize and communications and utilize that on our platforms as communications.
Yeah, and so Chanel's the young person. Adib also started at Youth Prize when he was in school still, and his role has evolved. He originally was just doing design work for us, and now he really leads our digital strategy. So, everything from like how we design, how we measure online experiences, all of that stuff, he's really leading. We're also doing some redesign tweaks in 2018. And so he's leading that process as well. And it's really because we know that if we work with young people, we're going to have better results. If we center the work around people who are impacted, we're going to have better results in telling stories that are relevant to folks. And so that's really a big goal of our communications work. And those pictures are funny, but whatever. And then finally, in addition to telling beautiful stories, sharing successes of partners, sharing Youth Prize successes, another goal of our communications work is around capacity building. And so if you go to our website right now, there's a series of tabs. One of them is research. And so you'll find that YPAR report that we just talked about that Juxtaposition Arts produced. And you'll also find this really great youth-led research report that's about student-teacher relationships with young people. It's a youth-led research report also done in partnership with Juxta and the Jane Rose Phillips Foundation. But we're producing research, or we're sharing knowledge produced by young people. And we hope that folks can use that as a resource for the work that they do, to share, youth-led research projects and ways to incorporate young people in research. That's another goal of ours. And so we're working on a video game right now, well, a game actually, about incorporating YPAR principles possibly in classrooms and other spaces. But then also in addition to our research work, we try to share tips on different components of nonprofit work or youth work. One example is this blog. Trying to get there, sorry. One example is this blog that Chanel produced. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so we had a lot of organizations approach us asking us how we do social media. So we decided to just put everything that we learned through our trial and error of doing social media into a blog. And we actually used a lot of the skills that we communicated in this blog to lead a workshop with, I think it was Northfield Youth Bank, who I think is doing a great job of improving their social media. But essentially we just talk about how do you time social media posts, what to post, what's the best thing to put, like content that's best to post. But we use this as a guide to,
Yeah, and the goal is to continue to use our website to build out more and more tools for folks to use, whether they're young people who are looking to kind of shift the culture at an organization to be more youth-centered, whether it's a communications staff member or like an executive director that doesn't have a communications staff member that needs support around social media, or somebody that's looking to kind of shift what a classroom looks like. We're trying to put out more resources and design them in ways where they make sense to folks. And so that's kind of the resources piece of it. Our brand manager did the quote from Paul Wellstone, so that's there too. And then this was just an example of another story, but because we shared other things, we're going to leave it at that. And there's a young person from McGizzy in these GIFs. But yeah, so basically our goal is to shift the narrative about young people in Minnesota by following the lead of young people in Minnesota and having them help us think about strategy and the ways we tell story, because we think that it can really change the world. And so that's basically it. So thanks. So I'm going to leave presenting mode or stop the share. So we're just here. But I don't know, Melissa, if you wanted us to facilitate like a Q&A or anything, or if you wanted to chat about anything. So that's like the communication strategy for Youth Prize. Those aren't like SIF specific tips. And like Melissa said, we're going to be working with the SIF team on how we can develop effective communication strategies for the type of stuff that you guys are interested in doing, ensuring that you can continue the work that you're doing and things like that. Yep, absolutely. So this is our Q&A time. So you guys, if you have questions, I'm going to exit full screen here. I can see all of your videos. I'm going to unmute everybody so that if you have questions, you can just ask them and we don't have to go back and forth through chat. But if you have any questions of our communications team, feel free to shoot. Well, we've got them on the line. And I think, Jill, you might be one who you've muted yourself and I can't unmute you.
Hi guys, this is Jason. I have a quick question. I'm on the Youth Prize site. Can you lead me to where some of those resources are, like what header and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So if you go to youthprize.org, there's different tabs at the top. So under resources and tools, there's research. And under research, you'll see 2 youth-led research reports. Also under tools, we have some reports that are about youth advisory structures, so suggestions for how to build a youth advisory structure. There's an OST participation gap that was conducted by Rainbow Research. And then there's a holistic indicators of youth development. So that one's really interesting. That's a youth-led research report where they kind of take on social emotional learning kind of indicators and redefine them for themselves. There's also a youth-led evaluation case study about where power shows up in workplaces and how decisions are made. So all of those, aside from the OST participation gap study, are incorporating youth voice or youth-led. And then under resources, there's a regional quality collaborative project where they have YPQA assessors that are young people of color. So we funded these people to basically get trained in YPQA assessment. And so if you're looking to diversify who's doing the assessor coaching, then this is a place that you can go. So those are under resources. And then our social media blog is under our news. And it's kind of a little bit far back. And so if you just go to youthprize.org well, you don't see the screen. We can have Melissa share out the social media blog just so you guys can have access to that. But on our homepage, you'll see another resource is the Podcaster in Residence announcement. That's just sitting on our homepage. And that should be pretty easy to access. We can also have Melissa send that out though.
Thank you.
I had a question about the podcast invitation. I'm really excited about that. I think I'd like to advertise that at Prior Crossing. So I'm just wondering, I was just wondering about that. If Melissa could send something out, or is there a flyer that we could post? Or, I mean, we'll definitely talk it up, but I could see that being.
Yeah, we can definitely have Melissa send it out. And Chanel can talk a little bit more about her thinking behind that, because she was really the leadership around pushing this.
Yeah, we can give the link to Melissa to share out, but essentially on that link, you'll see all of the instructions for the podcaster in residence to be able to apply. So for a young person to apply, they just have to provide us a written overview of their podcast, as well as an audio recording of their podcast idea, which can be low quality on their phone kind of recording, but all the information is included in the link.
Okay, great.
And then we can also send you some social media links as well if you want to share it on social media.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I think one important thing to note is that we're like not looking for professionally produced like podcasts. Like it doesn't have to be like somebody is super already knows all the stuff. Like you can record it on your phone and send it to us. So it's not about the quality of the recording, but it's about, you know, the idea if we'll be able to do 6 episodes based on the idea that the young person is pitching and things like that.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Well, if there's no other questions, I'm going to make my screen the main screen. There we go. And Rose, do you have any closing comments?
We can definitely send out some of the links and even like the videos that we got so that you can get to them a lot faster. Yeah, we can do that.
And then we also record this video so we can save it and upload it to YouTube so we can send this to you as a link as well. And we're going to share it on the Google Suite site so we can keep all of our communications on there as well, kind of our historical documentation.
And I would say, you know, sometimes you have questions after the fact that you're thinking about this. Just email, you know, me or Melissa, and we'll definitely take them into consideration. We will not have check-in next week, so this is the last kind of our interaction for the year of 2017. Oh my goodness! So.
And I shared all the links on the side in the chat, so folks should be able to access the Podcaster in Residence announcement, social media tip, and then the Youth-Led Research Report with juxtaposition art.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. It's like just in time. We got it.
Mm-hmm. So that should be saved as part of this webinar as well. So I'll just make sure it's saved. And thank you all. We'll be sending out your financial reports and the narrative report guidelines, if not this week, at the very beginning of next week. And then those aren't due until January. So if you have any questions, just let us know.
And happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
She's gonna
All right, stop recording. Bye, guys.
Bye.